Hello, and welcome to Spirit Among Us. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 4 and 5. But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. These verses here speak of the great hope that we have in Christ, the great salvation that is ours in him. We have been made alive. We who once were dead, we have now been made alive together with Christ. God brought us from death to life, and the reason that we see listed here for that is because of his great love that he has for us. Because of God's great love, we have been saved by faith. Because of God's great love, we have the hope of an eternity with him. This is one of the motivating factors that led God to save us at all. His great love. So I want to look to what Jesus said about this in John chapter 15, verses 13 and 14. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. There is no greater love than the love of God. There is no one you can compare him to. No one he can possibly be likened to. His love is higher than the highest mountains. His love is deeper than all the oceans or seas. His love stretches wider than the east does to the west. And his love is greater than anything else. This is the kind of love that Jesus has demonstrated to us in willingly laying down his own life for our sake. No one forced him to die. No one forced him to descend from heaven and take on that burdensome cross, but he freely chose to do it. And this demonstrates how great his love is. This is why he laid down his life, because of that love. This is clearly a strong love that he has, but it goes deeper still. You see, we must remember ourselves in the context of being fallen to see how great this love that God has for us actually is. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I want to look now to Romans chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. For while we were still weak, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare even to die. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Here is a great explanation of how wonderful our God's love is. Paul in Romans probes our thinking, talking about someone laying down their own life. It begs the question, would you give up your life for someone that you love and care about? Let's make a hypothetical situation to explore this further. Let's say a family member has a heart that is really beaten up. They had a history of coronary artery disease, and they finally got hit with that massive heart attack their doctor had been warning them about. Unfortunately, it wasn't recognized soon enough, and much of their heart has died. And as a result, it's only functioning at 15% efficiency. Definitely not enough to live on. They need a heart transplant, but the waiting list would take over a year for them to get one. Their only option for staying alive is having someone donate their heart by surprise and therefore give up their own life. Now, obviously this is not a legitimate medical practice, but it's just a hypothetical situation. People don't actually donate their own hearts while they're alive. But what I want to get at here is this question of laying down your own life. So now here's the question. Would you give up your heart for that relative? Perhaps some people would, perhaps some wouldn't. Let's take a new hypothetical. Let's say that person is now a complete stranger who approached you and informed you of his condition. You've never met him before in your life, but he comes up to you and says, I'm going to die. Will you give up your heart so that I can live? Would you choose to willingly give up your life for him? I think that most people likely wouldn't. I'm not sure I would. But let's take it a step further. Now, this person isn't a stranger. They are your worst enemy. In fact, this person has spent all of their life trying to undermine you in every way possible. They hate you with a passion. If your worst enemy needed a heart, would you give up your life for them? If we're honest, I don't think many of us would do that. I don't think any of us would do that. And this is where we begin to understand the great love of God. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Let us remember this so that we will see the love of God. Because while we were his enemies, while we lived in disobedience to him and undercut all his ways, while many of us even hated him with a passion, he still laid down his life for us. This is the God that we serve. We have been saved because of God's love. Thank you for watching, and God bless.